thanks for joining us today. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a rust effect, a how-to tutorial, the step-by-steps, the tools that we're going to use. If you've seen my previous video, this was the copper wall that we had done with the patina, but we've had enough of that now, so I'm going to guide you through how to do rust effect. Couple of little steps. We're going to be using the base primers, and then we're actually going to use an activator solution. So we're going to be using the same setup on prep and everything. So we're going to be doing, taping wherever we don't want this effect to be hitting. We'll sheet up and then we'll go through some of the tools we're going to use. So the tools that we're going to be using today is a 4-inch brush of any kind really. Make sure that you get a spray bottle with water. There are ways as well, which I'll show you later on in the video, which is where you can actually put the activator in there and spray it on and then just brush off any run drip marks. Or what we're going to more than likely do today is brush it on. You will want a spray bottle. You can actually enhance the activation of the effect just by giving it light little sprays with water, which we'll cover later on in the video. You're going to want a paint stirrer. Get it really deep, and you'll almost instantly, if it's been sitting there a little while, you will feel how gloopy the paint is from the bottom. So what you want to do is just give it a really good stir. Let's get going. So once you're all set, make sure all your tape and everything is, finely tightened to your edges. Because I'm right-handed, I always like to go left to right. We'll start in an area here and work our way out, down and then over. Make sure you get plenty on your brush. Bear in mind that you're not going to cover it in the first coat. It is a 2-coat application, so don't try and cover it in one, because you're going to want that second one for a really good finish once we put activators and everything on. Let's get your brush, plenty on the brush, and we're just going to be doing an overlap turn pattern. So we put on and this is why we use a wide brush, because otherwise you'll be there forever trying to get it coated if you have a small brush. You can give it a little bit of randomness. It hasn't always got to be the same, because as I say, we want an imperfect finish. That's what tends to look a lot better. You just want to lay it on nice and evenly, nice and fairly. So now, as you can see, we're putting the second coat on. It's the same technique as what you're going to do with the first, just a lot of randomness, a lot of different strokes, like pull it down, cross brush it. After the first coat, you want to leave it about 2 hours, 3 hours, it's always depending on temperature of the room or the weather conditions outside. You want it to be bone dry, because you want your second one to lay on nicely and cover it. If it doesn't cover in a second, you can always put a third on. It doesn't matter how many coats that you put on, it's just getting everything covered, sealed, certain brush patterns that you want to get done nicely on it. So once you put your activator on, it's going to be really pulling out the effect. As you can see, this is the second coat going on now. This is what it will look like after the first coat. Don't panic. As I said earlier on in the video, your first coat is not going to really cover too well. You're just sort of more basing it. Let's get the rest of this done. now once you've done your second or even maybe your third coat, it's going to look a little bit like this. So you can see that in these areas that it's starting to dry. Something that I probably should have shown in the video is when you are doing your tops, you can brush it in, but as you brush it in, if you're doing an overlap pattern, just pull it out a little bit, get a little bit funky with it. That's why I like to use the wider tape. What we're going to do now, we're going to leave this for about 10 or 12 hours, come back later on this evening and get it cracking with the activator. Right, so now we're back in the evening. We've left it 12 hours to dry. Your wall will should look something like that. Now this is the most exciting bit. All the work that you've done to this point, all the prep and everything, the wrist ache from all the brushing that you've done is going to now start to come to life. So I've used the same brush as I had earlier. So your activator, get a pot, ideally get a smaller pot. I can't find a smaller pot, I've only got this one, but ideally a smaller pot, just so you've got not as much wastage and you're not chasing it around with a brush. A spray bottle. What we're going to be doing is once we put the activator on, with the spray, it just gives us a little bit of acceleration on it. So yeah, let's get going. So starting from exactly the same pattern that you've started last time, so starting sort of in an open area and working your way out to the edges is basically what we're going to do with the activator. A very, very similar technique. Apply it to however you want it. As I say, if you want a more sort of mottled finish, then use a sea sponge, or if you just want a in-depth sort of rust pattern, then use your brush. You're going to lay it on evenly in the same patterning that you've done. A couple of random brush strokes here and there. So if you just follow it to how you've brushed it, and then don't panic too much, work out, it will start to show in time, but just work out roughly where you want your pattern. With activator, what we're going to do is, with your spray bottle, just so it's a nice spray, nothing heavy at all. You don't want to saturate the wall. Just a couple of light, gentle sprays over, gives you a bit of acceleration. It won't come through straight away, the activator. Give it a little bit of time and it'll start to show roughly where you're at with it. You can apply 1 or 2 coats. One coat will keep it, it'll still bring the rust out and it'll still give it a really nice effect, but it won't be as of a strong finish. It won't be a potent rust, whereas if you do 2 activators, it will really bring it out, so you won't really have any dull spots. So bear that in mind. As I say, practice on little bits of board or whatever before, just so you can get a feel of how the system of it works. What we're going to do is just give it a couple of light gentle sprays over, and yeah, we'll go from there. To be aware of when putting your activator on, depending if you want it all over, absolutely fine. If you didn't quite want certain areas to look like rust, be very, very careful. Anything that the activator touches will start the process of rust, so just bear that in mind when you're putting it on. So after a few, just a little light mist over, very light mist, we're just going to let that sort of start to pick itself up a little bit, and then we'll take it from there. So guys, roughly that's where we have it right now with the activator and everything. That is not kind of fully finished to what it's looking like now. It still needs to mature quite a lot. The process will mature for a little while because of the activator is quite, watery, and especially if you've gave it a little spray of water as well. You just got to wait for it to do its thing really. But that's roughly sort of the effect. But what we'll do, we will check back in a couple of days to see how the final effect is. Probably like you see on that last clip there on the time lapse, what I actually done was there was a few bits that I knew was going to dry dark where I hadn't have hit with enough activator on the first one. Everything's had a first one. There was a couple of bits that I just touched up with a second, maybe a couple of bits that I've missed. You can activate it as many times as you want. Normally no more than 2. You don't really need to. With 2 it will really just bring everything. It'll bring all your sort of rusty, orangey sort of colours out a lot more heavily. That's it for today. What we'll do is we'll check back in a couple of days once it's fully matured and we'll check it out.